From the guy who dies on the way to the path of exile endgame.
What?
And the guy who picks up less items every league.
Bauer, you don't pick up fucking... Every time I watch this podcast, I only pick up one item a year.
Comes a podcast that makes the stars align for what really counts.
I'm so sorry for playing the game while you're doing a podcast, but I just dropped an angler's plate. This has been my goal for like 3 years of playing the game. I'm finally free. I can finally play fucking...
Faded Connections Path of Exile Community Podcast. Every other Saturday, live on Twitch and available on YouTube and podcast platforms after. Find our 2 to 3 hour episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, and many more.
Yeah, in terms of the difficulty in characters, I'm hesitant to say that it needs adjustment a week in. Almost every single league I've played, and I've played most of them, people have said it's too hard the first week. Then people realize a lot of the time it's not too hard, they just haven't learned it yet. So it feels hard to them.
Yeah.
So if people are still saying it's too hard a month in, maybe it's too hard. But right now, I think people just haven't learned it yet.
Most people actually skip the Stone Circle one. I personally find the Stone Circle one to be the most fun. I don't change much about my behavior. I still run circles around the altar in the middle. I just route through the stone circles and just still rotate around it, and eventually it's done.
I leave unless the reward is good. It just feels so bad.
I think reflecting back, when I was leveling up, the difficulty was pretty good. Played as totems. Maybe that's a pretty good build for it. I also played a cold-based build, which is a big deal because you can freeze the monsters and they won't hit you. So I think I probably had a pretty good starter for it. But I was finding the mechanic challenging enough that I couldn't max out every single ultimatum on my league starter, even with reasonably good gear. So I think the difficulty is at a pretty good place. And I also think the rewards are at a pretty good place.
My second big complaint with the league so far, I haven't found the Trialmaster yet. I can consistently max out.
I've gotten 0 10s so far in 72 maps. It's crazy rare. And overall, over the whole league, I've gotten 2, and I've run hundreds of maps. So it's pretty damn rare. It's pretty rare.
I've found 1 total so far.
Is there any world in which it would be better to get splinters?
I was going to suggest that.
It seems like a natural...
I don't want splinters.
Maybe what we need is just some sort of system that says, if for, let's say, 100 consecutive maps, you do not get a wave 10, your next ultimatum, you will be told this is going to go to wave 10.
100? My goodness. I mean, that's a lot of maps, bro. Most people aren't going to be able to see them still, right? That's crazy.
But that would just be a fail-safe, right? Like, you wouldn't take away the chance of finding it. You would just have a forgiveness system where, like, if you've gone on this incredibly unlucky streak and just not seen him, he will get forced into there at some point.
I think what I would prefer is that just... I've talked to a few people about the mechanic. While it's fantastic, all the way up until, that point where your character is like a juggernaut and you just blow through it. At that point, what you really want is some sort of agency over how many waves you're going to get. So whether that's, like investing some sort of currency or increasing the difficulty. And like, let's say you complete a 9. Next time, it's going to be a 10. Then, like kind of somehow it powers up as you do more and more consecutively. I think that's the ideal scenario. Because right now he's just too rare and we have no control over being able to encounter him, which kind of sucks.
Yeah, I would like to fight him more. I wanted to kill him a bunch to see if he was rewarding, but then I was like, cool, I'm getting him now. I'm at tier 15 maps. He'll show up again, right? Right?
Yeah.
And he never came back.
Definitely. There's a lot of different options and avenues if you're GGG saying, well, players aren't encountering this enough or players feel this isn't rewarding enough to then either make people encounter him more or to make him more rewarding.
Can you guys tell me what were your most valuable rewards from Ultimatum so far?
I've got 2 or 3 Cortexes so far. A ton of 6 links. I've probably got like 26 links, clean 6 links. Hundreds of chaos overall. But, that's an accumulation of the small things is what makes it powerful. But yeah, I haven't gotten like, 10 exalts or anything like that.
I can't really think of what my most valuable reward is because usually what I do is I just do every single trial he offers and pick up the loot pile at the end, and I don't really pay attention to which came from him and which came from the enemies I killed during it.
I hate that about it. I really wish that you could keep pushing it so you actually cared about what's on the table.
Yeah, I definitely would prefer to care about what's on the table, but once I got my build decently up and running, I'm going to guess I have 20 to 30x in gear. It's not really all that much. and it's still ignoring the risk aspect. It's all reward, really.
It's like it went from like a high stakes poker game, like where you're like, oh man, you know, ratcheting it up, to being able to go all in and 100% win chance. It's like, oh dude,
Yeah.
Where's the fun in that?
I haven't looked at a reward table in a while. The last time an Exalt dropped, I was surprised, but it dropped out of the middle. I'm like, that was the reward, I guess.
I've identified with the guy in chat saying 2 eggs and a 6 link. From you, what's 2 6 links and 1 eggs? I think were the best rewards so far, but I also just entered red maps because I'm playing with a fairly casual approach. Instead of playing like 16 hours back to back every day, play like 8 to 12 hours. But I was hoping that once I get into red maps, that the Trialmaster is going to be a lot more common, that the higher number ultimatums be a lot more common. And now after we had that little bit of a talk, I'm worried that that will not be the case.
It is more common and it is more rewarding. The higher and higher wave you go, the better and better rewards that are on offer. And the average waves that are offered in red maps is significantly higher than like white maps, for example, because in white maps you can get like 4 or 5. And I think like caps out at 5 or something like that.
I think it capped out at 6 in lower tier maps.
Yeah, like that's like the minimum you can get in red maps. So it is significantly more rewarding in T14 plus, and you have a higher chance at getting the Trialmaster because the floor is much higher.
Does he have any like stupid good drops that we really want?
He's got the helmet. I think it drops the helmet. He's like the wave 10 reward is generally meant to be pretty good. The 2 wave 10s I got was half an exalt, which is, I mean, like whatever, and a Lycos today. But you know, I've seen people get like 10 exalts and stuff like that on wave 10. I think it would eventually, like if you did 100 wave 10s, it would be pretty impressive what he offers on average.
But then like round 10, you also have all the mods that ramp up to then you have to be really smart with picking. You either have to have a very strong build or you have to be really smart with picking the mods, or lucky as well, because some things like the ones where the auras that affect allies also affect enemies, that's a free mod in a lot of builds, like physical builds or my build. I'm not running an aura at all. I just run Herald of Agony and a dual blasphemy for my occultist. I just always pick that. But also something like Pride or Flesh and Stone are auras, but they don't affect your allies. I've heard Gazi say in a video that he always picks the projectile mod because he doesn't use projectiles, so it's a free mod. And I was like, added projectiles, Monka S.
That's not a free mod. No, that's one of the mods I've been telling people to avoid. It is one of the most dangerous.
Yeah, wait, which projectile one?
Your projectiles fire randomly. Enemy monsters have added projectiles.
I've been taking that every time, thinking it was nothing. It's never been dangerous once.
I don't know how many of the mobs that spawn in ultimatums actually use projectiles, though. Like, most of them use melee attacks, right?
I was actually unaware that mod said, and they had projectiles. I was just like, projectiles in a random direction.
I remember specifically that Rory talked on Bakelast about that mod. Oh, that's cool, because for some builds it's like nothing, but for other builds it's like, well, a random direction that completely messes with how your build works. And when the first time I saw that mod, I was like, okay, he didn't mention that it would add added projectiles to enemy monsters, so you're basically never picking it. But
just generally, multi-prod's like the most dangerous thing you could get. I'd rather have double added damage than multi-prod on any map ever.
Another one that's really, really deadly is the escalating increased damage taken, because after a little bit, you're wearing an Abyssus, but you get no damage for it.
I guess it depends on your build, right? That one I actually take every single time.
Really?
Because you just kill them all the time before they have a chance to ramp up?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Pretty much.
I probably could at this point. I guess I'm just thinking from a perspective of before my build could trivialize it, because now, okay, I do have to look because the mana one will kill me. But I think aside of a mana one, I could probably just randomly click and be fine.
I think the Storm Sigils are a no-no. That shit is...
Oh, I take them all the time.
Really? I don't like them.
I feel like the Storm Sigils, the Fire Skulls, the Ice Pustules, they're all fine at like the tier 1. Tier 2 sometimes, but I never upgrade them to 3.
The Storm Sigils, if you're doing the run in the circle strategy, if you're too fast, you'll come back and like come into one that you already previously activated and just one-shot you.
Right. Okay.
That's why I don't take it. Because that happened to me all the time. I'm like, oh, god damn it.
Oh, I could just tank them.
Choking Miasma is what I always pick, because Occultist, I'm sitting at comfortable 60 positive Chaos Res, and the Cloud is so slow that you don't even have to change your strategy. You still run circles, and the Cloud never catches up with you, even on rank 3.
The loot from it is completely ridiculous. The loot explosion is like 2 incursions worth, or like even 3 incursions worth of loot. If you stack that with the corrupted watchstone modifier, the one that corrupts everything, or the 6-socket watchstone modifier, it's ridiculous. You get so much money from every ultimatum. It's crazy.
There's so much on the ground. What? It looks like a little 3D circle.
I've been telling people who said that it's not rewarding whenever I run a full ultimatum, even in like a yellow channel or waterways, then I will just get at least 2 tabular cards from it.
I wonder how many of the people who say that it's unrewarding and overly difficult are between levels 75 and 90 and are still trying to transition their build from whatever they started with while they're leveling to what they're playing in endgame. Because I could very much see it, and this isn't true just of Ultimatum, this is true of almost any reasonably rippy League mechanic. The problem isn't that the mechanic isn't rewarding. No matter how good your build actually is, it's going to feel bad for a time unless you're very experienced with the game, and unless you really know where everything's coming from. I could see a lot of people kind of feeling like, okay, this is a problem with Ultimatum, when really it's just a natural part of a progression of a character on League Start.
I don't know. I've talked to people who say it's not rewarding, and guess who they are? Guess who the people who say they're not rewarding is? It's all the 100% deli juices, man. They're the people who are saying it's not rewarding. For me, at least.
Yeah,
because like
but that's
when you
because
compare,
their content has been taken away from them.
Yeah,
and now they can't. They've got nothing left to run.
Yeah, for me, it's mostly been people who tend to re-roll 3 times by now, and tend to run into that sticking point with their build, and instead of facing it head-on, look to greener pastures, and so they never get far enough into maps to get to the good ones, and they never get far enough into the waves. If you're doing wave 1 and 2, maybe it might seem unrewarding, but that's kind of like saying that, well, farming Blood Aqueduct is unrewarding compared to tier 16 maps. You need to give it more time and you need to progress your character.
There was definitely an area on my Spectre build where I couldn't do all the waves for a while, and it didn't really feel that great. I just had to sort of power through until I could change into clusters, and then...
For me, the entire time in white maps, I was pushing to like wave 3 or wave 4, and I was like, super scared. But by the time I had unlocked Uberlap and done Uberlap, got my Malediction for the cursed enemies deal reduced damage, and got my dual curse blasphemy, temp chains, and feeble. Then I just went into yellow maps and just all the way through, every single time. Except for when it's very limited space, like I did skip one earlier, for example, in a, laboratory map, because it was on a tiny little island. I was like, okay, there's no worth rewards. I'm just gonna end it here after round 2 and do it in the next map, because it's in every map anyway, because it's the league, so don't have to feel bad about skipping it. I'm just like, okay, pop in the next map, let's go.
Yeah, that is one nice thing about a league mechanic being 100%.
Can we take a moment to quickly talk about how awesome the time stopping mechanic is? I've been missing this time stopping stuff since Shaper, but like now that it's in the game for this, it's so good. You can just you can read chat, you can interact with people, you can answer questions, you can level your gems. It's so good.
You can read the actual league mechanic instead of hoping you don't die to a rat that you didn't see. Like with Betrayal and Incursion and so many leagues.
Outside of the league launch specific issues, I feel like the league mechanic works really well. There's very, very few problems with it.
I have to have that freeze mechanic. I'm hoping that this freeze mechanic though is a test.
Yeah.
And that they like it. And now when I talk to a syndicate member, whole game freezes in the background.
It's not happening, Valor. Multiplayer makes that not possible. For Shaper, people hated the mechanic, right? But yeah, I don't think it would work for Betrayal in multiplayer, and I don't think they'll add it for that. It only really works for Ultimatum because everyone gets ripped into the Ultimatum arena.
I think it might be worth it. I don't know. They have to decide. It's their game, but
it could happen.
On a completely unrelated note, has anyone seen the tweet where Bex says that she can't say too much, but later today we're doing a 100% playtest with the GGG crew of something I've been tinkering with recently? I'm excited about it.
Yeah,
no idea.
I'm looking forward to Battle Royale as well. Hell yeah, dude.
I hope you guys all have an amazing league start and you find some of the positivity that we found in this podcast for yourself. You're gonna go hard and long and strong. And we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks, guys, for watching and listening.
Faded Connections Path of Exile Community Podcast. Every other Saturday, live on Twitch, and available on YouTube and podcast platforms after. Find our 2 to 3 hour episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, and many more.
But you can basically just look for faded connections on Spotify. Spotify is what 90% of people who listen on other platforms than YouTube are listening to anyway.